My son had pulled another all-nighter gaming and passed out at his computer desk. I was about to drape a blanket over him when I accidentally saw a post he'd made online insulting me. My mom is such a cheapskate. She'd rather waste money on fancy fruit, steak, and lamb chops than give me cash for games. She won't take care of me now? Fine. When she's old, I won't take care of her either. Someone tried to talk sense into him, but he replied, mental nourishment counts too. My dad's side piece is more of a mom to me than she is. That woman hangs out with me, plays games with me, and loads up my account with coins. How did my dad end up marrying such a woman like my mother? My blood ran cold. All these years, I had worked myself to the bone so our family could have a better life. Why was I still sacrificing everything? I lay in bed scrolling through more of his posts. I'm not being evil, but I wish my mom would die early. She hired a private tutor to supervise me like I'm a prisoner. Tomorrow's my birthday. I'll ask her for $500 for game skins. If she doesn't give it to me, she's just a money-making tool to me. My heart sank. Everything I had done for his future, he saw as chains. Suddenly, Ethan walked into my room. Mom, I'm hungry. What's for lunch? I turned off my phone. I'm not cooking anymore. He blinked, startled. I had never missed a single meal for him, not even when I was sick. Then excitement flickered in his eyes. Then I'll order takeout. You rest. I normally didn't allow takeout, but if he didn't want the life I'd built for him, fine. Let him grow wild. He lingered. Mom, it's my birthday tomorrow. Don't buy me a present. Just give me $500 for my game account. I stared at him. No, I don't even have enough money for myself. Ask your father. He looked shocked and angry. You're not getting me a present. That's right, and I won't be buying anything anymore from now on. He exploded. Am I just a studying machine to you? Everything I do is wrong unless it's studying. I looked at this boy who felt like a stranger. He hadn't always been like this. He used to tell me I was the best mother in the world. David stormed in. Lisa, what the hell is wrong with you? He was stunned. Every year I prepared a full feast for Ethan's birthday and bought expensive gifts. He patted Ethan. Don't worry, buddy. Dad's got you tomorrow. The next day I went shopping for myself. Clothes, cosmetics, jewelry. I got a facial and ate at a nice restaurant. For once, I spent money on me. While eating, I checked Ethan's posts again. My mom's gone crazy. She stopped cooking and didn't even acknowledge my birthday, but it's fine. Our family of 3 celebrated at my other mom's place. She's amazing. Some commenters defended him. Others said he needed moderation. Ethan replied, This is why I praise my other mom. She's better than my real mom in every way. At the parent-teacher conference next week, I'm bringing her. She's the best woman in my heart. Dad will divorce that psycho eventually. My stomach twisted. When I returned home that night, Ethan and David had clearly enjoyed their celebration, but they still looked annoyed. David confronted me. Why didn't you make his birthday special? I shot back. I celebrate your birthdays every year. Have either of you ever celebrated mine? He fell silent, then glared. Ethan pretended to be understanding. Stop fighting. I don't care about this stuff. Of course he didn't. His other mom had given him $1,000 for his game account. A week later, Ethan didn't tell me about the parent-teacher conference, but I attended anyway, volunteering to go for my friend's daughter, who was in the same class. I wanted to see this other mom. When I entered the classroom, I saw her, Kelly Brooks, the receptionist at David's tiny company. She was young, pretty, 25. I sat behind her. She and Ethan didn't notice me. When the teacher asked about Ethan's college plans, Kelly smiled. His grades aren't great, so he won't be taking the SATs. His dad and I just want him happy and healthy. The teacher frowned. You're Ethan's? Ethan quickly stood up. She's my mom. Everyone turned to look at her, and then at me. The teacher pointed toward me. Ethan, your mom is sitting right there. A heavy silence fell over the room. I smiled and asked, Ethan, who's your mom? Whispers exploded around us. Ethan's face twisted. Then he said calmly, Kelly Brooks is my real mom. Lisa is my aunt. My real mom died young. She just pretended to be my mother so I wouldn't get bullied. Not a flicker of guilt. The teacher turned to me. Is this true, Miss Morgan? I didn't hesitate. Yes. From now on, please discuss Ethan's academic matters with Kelly. His wish was granted. At home, Ethan tried to explain. Mom, don't get me wrong. I only lied so people wouldn't know I found a fake mom to replace you. You wouldn't want that embarrassment, right? I smiled bitterly. I know you said it to save face. He relaxed. So, you're not mad I gave up on the SATs? No, I'm not. I had already stopped thinking of him as my son. No more paying for college, cars, weddings. No more being responsible for his life. The relief was mine. That night, David called. Honey, transfer me money for business entertainment. I'm on a trip and don't have enough. I earned $50,000 a month. For years, he had taken $20,000 of it to fund his repeated failed businesses, and I had never complained. But now that I knew about Kelly, revulsion filled me. I don't have money. I bought myself a gold bracelet. He exploded, accusing me of being irresponsible. I hung up. He sent dozens of voice messages and a 1,000-word text rant. I ignored everything just like he'd ignored me for years. 2 days later, the cemetery called. Miss Morgan, your parents' ashes were sold. Your husband brought clients yesterday. He sold your mother's ashes for a ghost marriage. Then your father's. He told us to sell the burial plots. I nearly fainted. My parents had been devoted to each other their whole lives, only to be separated after death by the man I had supported for years. I rushed home shaking with rage. David walked in complaining about his dead phone. Ethan threw his backpack and casually ordered, Mom, I want garlic butter shrimp. Neither noticed my expression. I stepped forward, trembling with fury. David, where did you sell my parents' ashes? David froze like I dumped a bucket of ice water over his head. His hand, still holding the charger, stalled in midair. Ethan stopped halfway to his room, backpack sliding off his shoulder with a dull thud on the floor. What are you talking about? David's voice came out too quickly, too sharp. I stepped closer, phone still in my trembling hand. The cemetery called. They said, you took my parents' urns. You sold their ashes. Where did you sell them? Ethan frowned. Mom, what are you saying? Grandpa and Grandma are at the cemetery. We went there last year. My heart squeezed. He didn't even know. I didn't look at him. I only watched David. His eyes flicked to the door, to his briefcase, to the hallway, like he was calculating escape routes in real time. Lisa, you're overreacting again. He said, you misunderstood. I just don't. I cut him off. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Too calm. Too flat. Don't you dare lie about this. Where did you sell my parents' ashes? For a second, something ugly flashed across his face. Impatience, annoyance, the same expression he used when a waiter brought the wrong dish. Then he sighed like I was being unreasonable about the weather. Fine, I moved them. That cemetery is expensive. I found a cheaper place. You know how tight money is. It's better for all of us long term. You sold them, I whispered, for ghost marriages to strangers. Ethan's head snapped toward him. Dad, what is she talking about? David threw the charger onto the coffee table, the plastic clattering. I had no choice, he snapped. You think money grows on trees? Do you know how much your mother's burial plot for eternity costs? Your grandparents are dead, Lisa. They don't care where they are. We're the ones who are alive. We need money. I stared at him, feeling my heartbeat in my throat. You didn't even tell me. If I had, you would have cried, screamed, made a scene. You can never be rational about anything related to your parents. He said it like this was a minor household disagreement about paint color, not about the fact that he'd ripped apart the last place my parents rested together. Ethan shifted. Dad, you really did that. Don't talk like that to me. David barked at him. I did it for this family, for your future. There it was again. For your future, for the family. The excuse stamped over every withdrawal, every sacrifice pried out of my hands. I thought of the late nights in the office, the unpaid overtime, the migraines, the stress, the way I'd stood at my parents' grave and promised them I'd visit often, how I'd lit incense, whispered updates about Ethan's grades, about promotions, how I'd touched the cold stone, imagining them side by side. That place wasn't even theirs anymore. Give me the money, I said suddenly. David blinked. What? However much you got for their ashes and the plots, give it back. He laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. You think I kept it lying around? Lisa, everything I do is to support my business. That money is invested. It's working for us. You don't understand how entrepreneurship works. I'm building something big here. But you invested my parents' ashes. I said you used their bones as seed money. Ethan flinched. "Mom?" His voice was small. For the first time in a long time, he sounded like a child again. I turned to him slowly. "Ethan, when your dad told you I was stingy, selfish, obsessed with control, did he also tell you I've been paying for this family alone for years?" His mouth opened, then closed. "Who pays the mortgage?" I asked. He hesitated. "Dad's company." I almost laughed. "The bank thinks differently. The loan is in my name. Your father's credit is ruined from all his big projects. Who pays your tuition? Your phone? The internet you use to trash me on your forums?" His face drained of color. "Dad," David bristled. "Why are you putting the kid in the middle? Money is complicated. He doesn't need to know every detail." I ignored him. "Who hired the private tutor you said was imprisoning you?" He stared at me, eyes wide. "She was my colleague in high school. I said her parents were poor. She couldn't afford exam prep. She cried the day she got into college anyway. I promised myself if I ever had a child, I'd make sure he never had to sit on the floor of a cold kitchen with borrowed books and no guidance. So I called her, begged her to give you a discount, and paid her from my savings. Every hour she sat with you, fighting to pull your grades up, came out of money I could have put toward your grandparents' grave, toward our retirement, toward anything else." Ethan swallowed hard. "You never told me that. I thought I didn't need to. I thought one day when you got into a good school, you'd understand. I thought I could carry the resentment until then." I took a breath. The room felt heavy, the air thick with things that couldn't be unsaid. "Do you know where the money for your game skins came from?" I asked quietly. He frowned. "My other mom buys them with her own money." I almost pitied him. "Your dad doesn't have a salary." I said, "His company has almost no revenue. He's been using my card, the joint account with my salary, to reimburse himself for business expenses. He told me clients needed entertaining. He told me investors expected certain standards. Do you know what entertaining meant? It meant dinners, hotels, gifts, and coins for your games. While you called me cheap, the money she used on you was still mine." Silence fell like a curtain. David's face twisted. "You're twisting things as usual. You agreed to support me. You said we were a team. Now you want to frame me as a leech in front of my own son." "I didn't have the full picture before," I said. "Now I do." I thought of the cemetery staff, their hesitant voices, how they'd said his name. I thought of my mother's laugh, my father's tired hands, how they used to slip me an orange or a piece of candy when money was tight. I thought of the urns, cold and small, carried away by strangers. Something inside me settled. "I'm calling the police," I said. David gaped at me. "Have you lost your mind?" "Desecration of graves," I said slowly. "Fraud? If ghost marriages are technically legal, then the cemetery has paperwork. I want to know exactly what you signed. If it's not legal, the police can deal with you. Either way, I'm done covering for you." Ethan shook his head in disbelief. "Mom, you're going to get Dad arrested." "I'm going to protect my parents," I said, "and myself for the first time in a long time." "You're insane," David hissed. "You'll ruin us. You'll ruin Ethan's future. Think about the scandal. Think about his classmates, the teachers." I almost laughed. His classmates already think his mother is dead. Remember? That's the story he told them. Ethan flinched as if I'd slapped him. "I'll fix it," he stammered. "I'll tell them the truth. I'll say I lied. You don't need to fix anything for me." I said, "You're the one who has to live with your own words." I walked to the sideboard where we kept documents. My hands were steadier than I expected as I pulled out files, the mortgage, the joint account statements, my salary slips, the life insurance policy, the cemetery contract copies I'd taken years ago when I handled the initial burial paperwork. I realized how much of the family's entire infrastructure had always run through me. I had set up everything, filed everything, paid for everything. David had been the loud voice, the big dreams, the man of the house who never actually built anything. I had. I picked up my bag, slid the documents inside, and retrieved my car keys. "Where are you going?" Ethan's voice cracked. "To the police station," I said, then to the cemetery. "Mom, please," he said hoarsely. "Don't. People will find out. They'll talk." "For years, I've lived to protect your face," I said, turning to look at him. I made excuses, smoothed things over, took the blame so you wouldn't feel embarrassed. But I'm done trading my dignity for your image. David lunged for my arm. If you walk out that door, don't come back, Lisa. His grip dug into my skin. For a second, the old instinct flared. To apologize, to back down, to keep the peace, to tell myself it was easier to swallow this and move on. Then I remembered my parents' urns being hauled away by strangers. I remembered Ethan typing that he wanted me dead. I peeled his fingers off one by one. You sold my parents, I said. You already made sure there was nothing for me to come back to. I left. The air outside was sharp and cold, but for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. At the police station, the officer listened without interrupting. I handed over my documents, gave the cemetery's number, recited dates. My voice shook only twice. At the cemetery, the manager's smile was brittle. Miss Morgan, this is a misunderstanding. You told me you sold my parents' ashes, I said. Now I'm here with the police. If you'd like to clarify, do it with them present. It turned out to be worse and better than I imagined. Yes, David had authorized the urns to be removed. Yes, they had been allocated to ghost marriages, but the cemetery hadn't completed the ritual yet. They still had both urns in a back room, waiting for payment from the families who ordered the ceremonies. They had sold the right to the urns, not the urns themselves. Yet, I stared at the small, familiar boxes when they brought them out. My knees buckled. The old officer beside me quietly steadied my elbow. I want to move them, I said. Today to a different cemetery under my name only, and I want everything in writing. Every form my husband ever signed here. Every transaction, every signature. The manager's face had gone pale. Of course, Miss Morgan. We will cooperate fully. Later, when I held the urns in my arms like fragile children, the officer cleared his throat. We can pursue charges against your husband, he said gently, but you understand that we'll drag this out. Media, courts, testimony. You've already secured your parents. Think carefully about how much more you want to go through. I knew what he wasn't saying out loud. This would be a bomb in our small community. My work, Ethan's school, David's already flimsy reputation. It would spread like oil on water. For a moment, the old version of me resurfaced, the one who would have swallowed everything to keep the family intact. Then a quieter thought stepped in. I could choose. File the report, I said. If the prosecutor decides to move forward, that's their decision. Truth is truth. What he did should be on record, even if nothing comes of it. It wasn't about revenge. Not exactly. It was about drawing a line, one that said my parents' lives and deaths mattered, that I mattered. When I left the new cemetery, dusk was settling. I stood for a long time in front of the fresh stone, tracing their names with my fingers. Mom, Dad, I whispered, I'm sorry it took me this long to protect you. I thought taking care of everyone else was honoring you. I was wrong. The wind rustled the trees above me, soft and dry. For the first time since the call, my chest loosened. When I got home, the apartment felt stranger than the cemetery had. Ethan sat at the table, his phone turned face down for once. David wasn't there. He left an hour ago. Ethan mumbled when he saw me, said he had business. He was yelling on the phone with someone saying, "You'd ruined everything." His investors, I said, that's between him and them. Ethan looked at me for a long moment. His eyes were red, his hair messy. He looked less like the arrogant boy from his post and more like the child who had once cried when I left him at preschool. Is it true? He asked quietly. Everything you said earlier about the money, about the tutor, about Grandma and Grandpa. Yes, I said. He swallowed hard. Why didn't you tell me before? Because I wanted to be the kind of mother who didn't keep score. I said, I thought if I just loved enough, sacrificed enough, one day you'd see it on your own. Instead, it made it easier for you to believe your father when he called me stingy and controlling. He flinched. His hand drifted toward his phone, then away. I deleted the forum posts, he muttered. That doesn't delete what you wrote, I said, or how you felt when you wrote them. He shifted in his chair. I was angry. Everyone else's parents are chill. They let them game, go out, do whatever. You were always on my case. Tutors, study plans, no takeout, no games during exam periods. I felt like you didn't see me at all, only my grades. I thought of the years I'd measured his height against the doorframe, celebrated each centimeter, the childish drawings pinned to the fridge, the way his backpack had grown heavier with each grade, while his laughter had grown rarer. I did see you, I said softly. Too much. That's why I pushed so hard. I wanted you to have choices I never had. But somewhere along the way, I stopped listening and only talked. I tried to build you a future and forgot you might want to help design it. He stared at his hands. So he said finally, "Are you going to kick me out?" There was fear in his voice now, raw and real. I thought of the countless nights his little body had curled against mine when he had nightmares, of the way he'd once shouted, "Mom," across a playground and run like I was the sun. "I'm not going to throw you out," I said. "You're still my son whether I like the person you're being right now or not. But things are going to change." His shoulders hunched. "Like what?" "I've cut off your father financially," I said. "The joint account is closed. My salary goes to a new account in my name only. The mortgage will be refinanced under me alone. He'll have to figure out his business without my money." Ethan stared. "You can do that." "It was always my money," I said. "I just finally decided to treat it that way." I took a breath. "As for you," I went on, "I'm done funding your games. No more coins, no more skins. If you want them, get a part-time job after school. If your grades crash, that's your choice. I'll stop chasing you with tutors and schedules. I'll give you the freedom you seem so desperate for, but I'm also done protecting you from consequences. If you fail, you repeat. If you drop out, you work. I won't destroy myself to pad the floor you fall on." His eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Yes." He looked around the apartment, suddenly small inside it. "What about college? You always said you would." "I always said I would help pay if you worked hard and took it seriously," I said. "Right now you aren't, so why would I keep a promise you've already walked away from?" He opened his mouth, then shut it again. His face crumpled, then hardened. "You're just doing this to punish me," he muttered. "Maybe it feels like that," I said, "but this is the most loving thing I've done for you in a long time. I'm giving you back your life. No more chains, no more invisible hands cleaning up behind you. Decide what kind of man you want to be. It's not my job anymore." That night, I slept deeply for the first time in years. I expected yelling from David the next day, storming accusations. Instead, there was silence. By the end of the week, the silence had a shape. A voicemail from his investor threatening legal action. A message from the bank warning about overdrawn accounts he'd secretly opened using our marriage papers. A stiff email from my company's HR department notifying me that someone had tried to take a loan against my future salary and been denied. I forwarded everything to the officer handling my case. When the first official notice arrived for David, a summon to answer questions about possible fraud and unauthorized use of family assets, I wasn't surprised. Neither was he. He burst into the apartment red-faced. "Are you happy now? You sacked the police on me? Do you know what this will do to my reputation?" "Your reputation," I repeated. "You sold my parents." "I did it for us," he shouted. "I carried this family emotionally while you were married to your job. I gave Ethan a fun childhood. I made sure he didn't turn into a boring little robot like you." "You gave him an addiction and called it love," I said. "You gave him my money and called it generosity. You gave my parents' ashes to strangers and called it business." His nostrils flared. "You're ungrateful. Without me, you'd be some bitter office spinster with a cat." "Without you," I said calmly, "I would have savings, parents resting in peace, and a son who didn't think his mother was dead." His arm twitched in a way that made Ethan step between us. "Dad, stop," Ethan said. His voice shook. "Just stop." David stared at him, stunned. "You're taking her side," Ethan swallowed. "I'm taking the side that doesn't sell my grandparents. You went too far." For a second, David looked like a balloon with a slow leak. Then he grabbed a duffel bag he'd apparently packed beforehand from the hallway, slung it over his shoulder, and headed for the door. "You think you can survive without me?" He spat. "Fine. Don't come crawling back when you realize how much you needed me." The door slammed so hard the frame rattled. I waited for panic to rise. It didn't. There was only a strange, quiet relief. Weeks passed. The investigation into the cemetery arrangement and David's finances crawled forward as these things do. The cemetery negotiated fines to avoid heavier penalties. David tried to blame them. They showed the forms he'd signed. I cooperated fully, then stepped back. I didn't track every development. I had a new routine to build. At home, the change felt like a slow, cautious thaw. Ethan's grades dipped further at first. He stopped pretending otherwise. He stayed up late gaming, then dragged himself to school, and I stopped hovering at his door, stopped making breakfast when he slept through the alarm. I only made enough for one. The first time he came home to an empty table, he scowled. "You didn't cook?" "I ate already," I said. "There's rice in the cooker. You know where the eggs and vegetables are. If you're hungry, cook. If you're too tired to cook because you gamed all night, that's your choice." He stared at me, incredulous. Then slowly he started cooking. The first attempts were awful. Burnt eggs, salty soup. He swore under his breath, the smell of failure lingering in the kitchen. I didn't laugh. I didn't rescue him. But one evening when his stir-fry actually smelled good, I passed by and said quietly, "That smells better than my first try did at your age." He didn't answer, but his ears turned red. On weekends, I went to the new cemetery alone. I talked to my parents about job opportunities I'd been too scared to pursue, about a professional certification I'd finally signed up for, about the quiet in the apartment. "Your grandson is learning," I said one Sunday, watching the light move across their stone. Maybe the hard way, maybe the only way left. Somewhere between those visits, the heaviness in my chest turned into something else. Not happiness exactly, just space. One evening, a few months later, I came home to find Ethan sitting at the table with a stack of papers. He looked up, eyes ringed with tired shadows, but clearer somehow. "Mom," he said, "I need you to sign something." An old reflex tensed in me, the one that used to sign whatever form David waved in front of me. But this time, I sat down across from him. "Show me." He pushed the papers over. "It's a withdrawal form. I want to drop 2 of my advanced classes. I'm failing them anyway." I talked to the counselor. She said I should either commit or adjust my schedule. If I drop them, I can take a part-time job after school. There's an opening at the electronics store near the subway. I read the paper slowly. "Why the sudden change?" I asked. He licked his lips. "Because if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'll fail everything. I thought about what you said about consequences, and about Grandpa and Grandma, and about money. I started reading the comments on my old posts that I didn't delete. Some of them were harsh, but they weren't wrong." His fingers twisted in the edge of his hoodie. "I don't know if I even want college," he admitted. "At least, not now. But I don't want to be like Dad either, pretending to be a big shot while living off other people. I thought maybe if I work even at a small job, I'll see what I'm actually willing to do." He looked up at me, eyes shining with something fragile and raw. "I know it's late to say this," he whispered, "but I'm sorry for what I wrote, for what I said to you, for letting them think you were just my aunt for all of it." The apology I had imagined hearing 100 different ways for years felt completely different in reality. Smaller, rougher, more real. I exhaled slowly. "You hurt me," I said, "more than you understand yet. Words don't erase that. Time won't completely erase it either." His shoulders sagged. "But," I added, "this is a start. Choosing work over easy money, choosing honesty over face that matters." I signed the form and handed it back. "You'll have less time for games if you work." I said, "Are you ready for that?" He gave a shaky laugh. "Maybe that's good," a thought crossed my mind. "Do you still talk to Kelly?" He hesitated. "Sometimes. Not as much. She stopped sending money when Dad's trouble started. Said she had to protect herself. She kept asking when you were going to drop the charges." I raised an eyebrow. "We'll see how much she loves you when there's no more coins to buy." He stared at the table. "I kind of already see it." Then he said very quietly, "When I was younger, you used to sit beside me while I played. Even when you didn't understand the game, you'd ask questions. Bring me fruit? I forgot that for a long time. I only remembered the times you said no." Memories rose. Small hands on a controller. His face lit by the screen. The way he leaned against my shoulder. The sticky sweetness of orange juice on his fingers. "We both forgot things," I said. "You forgot what I've done for you. I forgot that you're still growing. We can remember differently from now on, but I'm still not paying for skins." He actually smiled, and it looked real. Yeah, I figured. A few weeks later, I was making tea when my phone buzzed with a notification from a site I barely remembered signing up for. Someone had posted a long story in the family and parenting section. It was trending. The title made my stomach drop. My mom worked herself to the bone while I called her a cheap online. Then I found out the truth. For a second, I thought some stranger had plagiarized my life. Then I started reading. It was from Ethan's point of view. He wrote about the forum posts, about the coins, about the private tutor, about the parent-teacher conference, and the lie he told that killed me often recast me as an aunt, about the cemetery call, about watching me walk out to report his father, about cooking for the first time, about filling out withdrawal forms, about the job at the electronics store where, ironically, his first paycheck went mostly to taxes and transport. He didn't paint me as a saint. He talked honestly about my nagging, my control, my obsession with grades. He wrote about how suffocated he'd felt, but he also wrote about the bracelet I finally bought, the urns, the realization that mental nourishment meant nothing if someone else's back carried the entire weight of reality. He ended with one line that made my throat close. I used to think my mom was just a money-making tool. Turns out I was the one using her. Now I'm trying to learn how to be her son again, starting from zero. The comments flooded in. People yelling at him, people relating to him, parents tagging their kids, kids tagging their parents. Some called him a monster. Others said they'd been him once. He posted under his real name. "Ethan," I said that night, holding up my phone, "you know this is going to follow you for a long time." He nodded. "I know, but if I could write all that crap about you in public, then hide. I can write the truth with my face on it. Consider it my first step at paying back what I owe. Not money, just honesty." I looked at him. Really looked. He still slouched, still had dark circles, still complained about long shifts at the store and how customers were worse than bosses. But when he pulled a crumpled receipt from his pocket and carefully wrote down his hours in a notebook, his hand didn't shake like his father's. It was steady. Later, alone in my room, I lay on my bed and stared at the ceiling. For the first time, the future didn't feel like a tunnel I was dragging two unwilling bodies through. It felt like a road with more than one lane. I thought of my parents' names carved into cool stone, of the officer's pen scratching across paper, of Ethan at the electronics store in his ill-fitting uniform, smiling awkwardly at an old man asking about a charger. I thought of the bracelet on my wrist, warm from my skin. I didn't know if Ethan and I would ever become the picture-perfect mother and son we want. I didn't know what would happen to David when the investigation finished, or whether Kelly would drift out of our lives completely, but for the first time, none of that was the center of my story. I was. And wherever my life went next, it would start from this. From saying no, from choosing myself, from honoring the dead by finally living like I had something worth protecting. Tomorrow, I decided I would visit my parents again and tell them everything Ethan had written with all the messy, painful, hopeful details. After that, I would enroll in that course I'd been afraid to take. The rest I would learn as I went,